The third level of customization for navigation tags, in addition to passing arguments into WP Nav menu and using the different CSS classes, is something called the Walker class. And the Walker class allows you to customize how menus are built and displayed. So we looked at how there are unordered lists and there are list items, and we could tweak some of that with WP Nav menu. But if you really wanted to build a menu completely different than how WordPress goes about it, you would have to use the Walker class to do it. Now, really knowing how the Walker class works and practicing examples of customizing it is a little bit outside of the scope of this course. So what I want to show you are some use cases for when you would do it and link you to some resources and go over how you would begin approaching it and when you might want to do that. So the number one use case you often hear about when you would want to customize how WordPress displays its menus is working with something like Bootstrap. So if you're familiar with Bootstrap, it's a CSS framework. It's been around quite a while, and it allows you to quickly build out sites using some consistent code and classes. Now, its navigation is slightly different. You'll notice that it looks a little bit different, and if we were to look at the markup, we would see that we do have some unordered lists, but notice how all of the class names are different, and it's using active instead of the current menu that is normally used, the class that's normally used. And it also has some extra little things like this caret appearing here on the drop-down menu. So if you really wanted to get this level of customization, both with how things are organized with the markup, but also all of the classes that are appearing, this is a place where you would use the Walker class. And there are some great already built Walker classes if you wanted to work with Bootstrap, and I'm going to show you one here. So what this Walker class does is basically customize how WordPress outputs things so that you can display it in a Bootstrap fashion. So in order for this to work, you would actually have to link the Bootstrap CSS code into your theme, and then you would download these files, and you would copy the WP Bootstrap Walker Nav PHP into your themes folder right at the root, and then in your functions.php, you would say require this. And then when you use it, notice that all of these, we'll zoom in a little bit more, all of these should look familiar, stuff that we've done, but notice that for fallback CB and a new parameter that I haven't talked about yet called Walker, you would say, hey, go ahead and call this other function as a fallback, and I would like to, for the Walker, set up a new class or extend the current class and do this differently. So this Walker setup here is basically telling WordPress, hey, instead of building out the menu how you would normally build it out, use this code here that will build it out differently. And what you would get is something that looks like a Bootstrap menu. So if you already know Bootstrap and you want to pull it into your CSS, remember we talked about how to link up multiple CSS files and make dependencies and things like that, and you want to practice adding a Walker class, you can. Now there are also starter themes that already come with this setup, and they have Walker classes built in, so you may be using one in a theme and not even know it. Now, when are you really going to need to do this? If you really need to build out some custom menu structures and you have no option, then you might need to explore working with the Walker class. And I'm just going to link you to an in-depth tutorial that talks about Walker class from an abstract level, because it could build all tree-like data structures as we see, not just menus. So this article does go and require a bit of PHP, more than we've covered at this point. It doesn't mean you can't work your way through it without some copying and pasting and a little researching. But this will walk you through how the Walker class works, building some simple examples, and then getting into more depth on all the different properties it takes and building out a more complex menu and adding that to your theme. So, like I said, it's a bit more in-depth than we really have time to go now, and it also requires some more PHP than we've been doing up to this point, but I do want to point it out because it is out there. It is something that you want to know about, and you want to remember that the Walker class exists, and you'll have some resources to go explore it when you have the need to do it. That said, I would not worry about it until that case comes up, because most devs will try to use some CSS or other tricks before building out a whole custom Walker class, because it is a little bit more complex, like I've been saying. However, that is the Walker class. It lets us customize how menus are built out and displayed. When you're working with a specific CSS framework or you have to match very specific markup in classes, that would be the case you use it. We're not going to practice it here, but you do have some examples and resources if you wanted to on your own. So now we've covered navigation tags pretty well. It's time for us to turn our attention to putting some of this into practice.